So the first dish I'm going to be preparing is beef stew with rice. First, I add a bunch of curry powder into the beef to add flavor to it, and I will soon mix it with a spatula to implement the flavors into the actual beef. So it'll be all together and the beef will have a richer flavor altogether. Then I am going to add paprika to it to give it a bit more of a kick and spice, so it will taste nicer in the end result. I'm adding it, and I'm going to add a fair amount just to make sure that I feel that kick, because it tastes really nice. I'm going to be mixing it more to make sure it all gets mixed in instead of just being on the top. Then I'm going to put the gas flame on so I can cook it in the pan. Meat usually requires no oil to cook because it has natural fats that will cook it itself. So I'm going to first start off by adding it into the pan. Then I'm going to add another one just to be sure, so I have a large quantity of it. But don't make sure when you're finished with making the actual soup, you don't want to throw this away because it can be used for multiple other recipes. So that will be really useful if you're trying to conserve money and resources. I'm going to mix it around in the pot just so it's all evenly distributed around, so it all cooks evenly and none are too overcooked or raw in this scenario. The meat will have its own natural fats as mentioned earlier, so that's why you can see it going brown and it will not stick to the pot because it's a non-stick pot, and due to the fats. It's starting to go browner, and you want to make it completely brown because that is what will ensure the most richest flavor, and it will also ensure that there is no sickness that comes from it. I'm going to add the onions. I've added the onions into it, and as you can see, the bubbling is a sign of the fat, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to add the onions to provide more flavor to the thing and to add more texture into it as well. I'm going to stir around the pot to make sure that it all cooks evenly. As I said, I'm going to kind of crush it into a fine mint so none of them are too long to chew, or so it's fine. And I'm going to add some more seasonings just so it's perfectly seasoned and so that it's all tastes fine in the end. I'm going to add a mixture of some paprika, some garlic and some ginger, accompanied with some curry powder that I put in the beginning. That should make a rich flavor, and I'm pretty sure garlic and ginger go really well together. As you can see, I'm putting sparse amounts, and my mother joins in to put more seasoning because I didn't put enough in, according to her, just to add more flavor, because as I mentioned earlier, she's just going to be adding more of everything, that it'll start bubbling, and you just need to mix it in once all the seasoning. I'm going to be adding a bit more onion just so you can really get a flavor inside of it, and a crunch and a difference of texture. Here it gets added in, and you want to make sure to get everything. You're just going to mix it around so it all cooks together. You're gonna add some passata to it. It's basically the same as tomato sauce. You're going to try add as much as you can, and when you think you've finished with the actual container, if you open it like I did, you can put some water in it and shake it round to catch all the little bits that were stuck onto the side and pour it out to make sure you get the most efficient use out of it, as I'm doing now. It's a great substitute for tomato sauce, and it tastes just the same. So you're going to want to mix that in until it turns a similar color and also has a similar type of consistency. So you're going to want to just mix that up. You might want to turn the stove down so it doesn't overcook. This stage you're going to want to do the rice. So I used a 1-to-1 ratio here. You can use whatever ratio you want, but I'd advise adding a bit more. As you can see, I spilt it there, so you might want to avoid that. But you also want to add some water in. Some people decide to wash their rice. I didn't here because I didn't mind that much, so it should all be fine. No, I actually used the 1 to 2 ratio. Sorry for that. One for rice and 2 for water. So we're going to want to move the beef stew to the back, as you can see, and we're going to want to boil the rice a bit. So you can use a rice cooker or whatever method you want. Vegetables are very easily cooked. You can get some frozen mixed veg from your local store if you want to. You just got to put a bit of water in the bottom of the pan so they don't burn. The ice, you don't have to put that much because the ice will melt, creating more water. And they'll start bubbling and softening. That will make them nicer, and you have the finished dish there: rice and beef stew along with vegetables.
So the next meal we're going to do on our weekday meals on a budget is spaghetti bolognese. So from the leftover mince that you had for the rice stew, you want to keep that going. Take out what you need for the rice stew and then add some tomatoes. An easy way to cheat is just to get the Asda value bolognese sauce. It works a charm. And you pour the whole thing in, put some water in, and make it go further. So you want to stir that in on a low heat just to make sure everything simmers together. And you might want to re-season because depending on how fiery or how bland you want it, re-season. Add some tomatoes in there. This is a great way to hide veg for kids that don't like veg. You could put your tomatoes in there, blend your veg, and then pour it in. They'll never know. If you've got kids that fussy and they don't want mushrooms, same again. Blend them in, pour them in. They're staying healthy, but they're none the wiser. So you want to mix it all in and take out a little bit of the sauce before we continue, because you want to save a little bit of the sauce for your kidney stew. Yes, this meal makes 5 meals, so you don't want to use everything or season it all the same. So here I'm just portioning out a little bit, and I'm going to use it for later because you're going to know how to stretch stuff. So what I'm going to do is pause, and I'm going to make some baked chicken because I want to use the water from the chicken for my spaghetti. It gives it a bit more flavor, gives it that little je ne sais quoi. You want to boil the chicken. First of all, you want to wash your chicken, the usual trimmings, and then you want to boil it in onions. So these are roughly chopped onions. Once it's boiled or cooked, you want to take it out, put it on some baking paper, and put it in the oven to finish off cooking. That way you get like a nice crispy coating on the skin, and you can use that as part of the meals as an addition, or you can just eat it as a snack. But we'll come back to the chicken in a little bit because we're going to make that with noodles in this very cheap and cheery budget. This girl gonna feed you for a week. So the chicken goes into the oven, and the water from the chicken you want to hold on to because we're going to use that with the fat from the chicken. Goes into the oven. I'd put that on a gas mark 5 for about 30 minutes, but keep watching it. I transferred the stock into a smaller pot just to see how much I've got, and I measured my spaghetti out using the palm of my fist. I don't know what you call that, but basically 1 portion is what you can fit in your hand. So you can see my hands are generous, so I added a little bit more. Depending on the size of your family, you might want to cook that and set it aside. I realized so quickly that my pan was too small, so I magically transformed it and made spaghetti bolognese, and the child served it and took credit. The next thing I did was go back to that bolognese sauce I left, added another jar, which is about 39 pence for the bolognese sauce, and this time I'm going to turn it into kidney stew because I'm going to add my kidney beans, put everything in, the juices and everything, and I then will add my mixed veg. Again, if you've blended all your veg and put that in, or if your kids don't like seeing it, blend it, chuck it in, and keep quiet. They'll never know. Mix it in, let it simmer, let it get rich until you see the color start to change. Add your mixed veg right at the end because they will overcook if you add them too early. And again, mix it in, let it simmer. Let it simmer. If you don't like the texture or the look of veg, blend it. Add whatever you want. You can add some cabbage to this as well just to thicken it a little bit. And then what you want to do with the stew is let it simmer until you see all the oil float to the top. The spaghetti, like I said, you can do spaghetti or you can do pasta, depending on what your family like. So I was cooking my spaghetti while I was making this I made the pasta in a separate pot and just some plain water, boiling water, a pinch of salt. I didn't put any oil because the stew will have a bit of oil, and you can have it separate. You can put the pasta on the side with the pasta and the kidney bean stew. And to make it even more fancy, or if you have fussy eaters that do not want to eat healthy, you can trick them by getting some of the pasta, get a little bit of the sauce, and then add it to a bowl. What you can do is as well, put it on a baking tray, chuck it in the oven, put some cheese on it, put it in for 5 minutes again, and then I'm just explaining that you can put it in the oven, make a pasta bake, and everybody's happy. But you can have it in a bowl as pasta leftovers the following day, and that's another meal. Meal number 5, pasta bolognese mix. Now, time for the chicken. Get your chicken out of the oven. It will have browned and cooked through. Make sure it's cooked through and it's not pink in the middle, because that can be very dangerous. Plate it up, and all you need to do is make it look pretty, and it'll be gone in 5 seconds. Once your chicken is ready, let it sit for a bit because it's coming out of the oven. Let it sit so that it doesn't break apart. And then everybody loves a pack of noodles. It can be pot noodle, it can be Indomie, whatever you do, put it in the microwave, and here you have it. Weekly meals on a budget. Some chicken and noodles, some bolognese, pasta and sauce, rice and sauce, and you've got a whole meal, different meals, for less than £10. Thank you. I need to think then it was £13, but it was, yeah, thank you.
There you go.
But yes.